you doing? I'm probably gonna post this to my channel that I put a lot of stuff on, like, you know, um, exposing truth and reality and stuff like that. But I just saw a video, and it really just it bothered me. It bothered me a lot, because people just don't know history. They just live in this ignorance of presentism. They think everything's always been the way it is. They have no idea why things are the way they are, when they started being like that they used to be different. Uh, and it's a serious problem. It's a serious problem. Um, Now I have ChatGPT here just to fact check me, but this is it's going to be a religious thing. I'm not picking any side. I'm saying objective for this video, and I'll tell you what it said. But it's not going to just be an argument like pro for. This video is actually going to be exposing the truth, the history that you're not going to see in any other video. You're not going to see this on either side. It's I, I'm a real big history buff. Um, the uh, the guy who made this video, I don't, probably shouldn't name names, but claims to be a doctor. I don't know if he's a doctor of theology, or I would assume he should be if he's speaking about that content. But you know how that works. I mean, um, to be a doctor of dance for all I know, but I haven't looked into him. Um, I just think it's funny that if you can be a doctor of theology, that you wouldn't understand some basic things, and even some history on your own faith. Um, and I've seen a lot of videos. I think I feel like I've hit a point where I know a lot of the arguments on all the sides, from Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Um, and my background is in, like I said, I'm a big history buff. I know that's not a lot to boast about, but I have a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in linguistics. Within that undergraduate degree for sociology, I had to do a lot of courses in world religions, and each specific one sometimes. Religion, society. That's my background. Linguistics also is very relevant to things like religious texts. Very, very relevant when it comes to Christianity, actually. Um, but I'm not saying I'm a doctor or anything. I don't have any expertise in that kind of stuff. But I think some things people should just fact check. And when people say things, like, honestly, I just like, if I've given up on a lot of people. I just like want to walk away from them, roll my eyes, just like ignore them. Like, I don't even want to bother correcting anybody anymore, or educate them. Usually, when you educate a fool, you just giving that fool more experience. There's a quote like that, right? What is the quote? This at ChatGTP that I heard that somewhere. I forgot where I heard. See, ChatGTP or ChatGPT. Sorry. Um, what is the quote, and who is it by, that talks about if you argue with the fool, you just give him experience?
Ah, yeah. You're probably thinking of the quote often phrased like, never argue with a fool. He will drag you down to his level and beat you with experience. It's often attributed to Mark Twain, but there's no solid evidence he actually said or wrote it. Some versions also get linked to Abraham Lincoln, but again, no solid record. It's one of those witty sayings that floats around, but its exact origin's a bit murky. Want me to tell you a couple of similar quotes that are confirmed?
So that's interesting. I just heard that somewhere. Like I said, I didn't know the background on it, but I thought it was very insightful. And that's definitely how I feel sometimes. Um, and even when you do educate these people, like, all you do is make them better at arguing their idiocy, and they fool people who are beneath them. Even though you're intellectually I'm not trying to say, I mean, I'm not trying to say certain people are better than others, but people have more knowledge than others. It's just a matter of fact. You know, but the thing is, if you're sincere about knowledge, and there's a lot of people that aren't, and if you argue with them, all you're going to do is give them ammunition to be more manipulative. Um, and I've seen that in life. And anyways, so of course, this starts with the basic premise of it's a guy. He's I guess he's pro Christianity in the video. I think that's what his whole identity is in the for his channel, and of course he says uh, Islam is not a real religion uh, because of the age of marriage. There's that thing about the age of marriage. Okay. Um, Now he did well. What I wrote in the comments are because and that was his first main thing. First main thing, the main thing I think he said was that um, the age of marriage. Well, I put a little response on the bottom, and I put because a lot of people don't know this. I don't think because I never see this on the other side. I see a lot of I guess call it a hobby. I see some of the I see videos even from the Jews, from the Christians, and the Muslims, and uh, and I was like, I'm a history buff too, so there's stuff that I'm thinking like, why don't they say like I feel like I know I grew up in Christianity, and I'm like they could just say this, or like they could just say this back, like don't they know like what a good example is where the Christians try to tell the Muslims, oh well their God has uh body parts because of some wording in the scriptures, and well in the Quran I guess, and therefore he's not a divine being or something like that. But it's like, okay, you're telling them that when the majority of Christianity uh tries to say that being made in the image of God literally means God has arms and legs just like you. Like that's a main interpretation. At least it's what I see. Like I mean, honestly, I don't think that. Like when I hear that, I think that hey, that kind of just means in his image, in his imagination, what he imagined, right? Like, but and of course the poetic speak of the scriptures and stuff like that. I think there's been a lot of lost too in communication of things like if you like here's a good example, and it's a little off topic but I'm gonna come back around boomerang around. um if you look back at some like TV shows or movies from the maybe the 90s that make fun of things, make fun of maybe older references, the next generation like your kids, if they don't get those references, it's going to go over the head. They're not going to understand. So there's meaning lost, so that's a thing in linguistics too, and not only that, words change, the way they use change, the way they interpret it changes a lot, but that's another topic. I mean, I'm not fully educated in theology. Then maybe if you go to sermon school, maybe a seminary or whatever, you might be more educated in that topic. But to me, it just doesn't sound like. But I know what I mean. At least what I search on the internet is that's the majority of Christianity's interpretation of that, is that they literally have the image of God means that you're made just like the way God looks or something like that. I don't know. It makes I thought always my interpretation, my understanding before researching all that was that God was, you know, like nothing. Actually, that's what the Muslims say is like nothing, not like creation, like nothing we know, just like, you know. So when the Christians say that to the Muslims, it's like, why don't they know? Like, they don't know what the Christians say. Anyways, uh, I feel like I could bridge that gap, maybe. Um, anyways, um, that's one example. But this thing about the age of religion, I mean, the age of marriage. Okay, this is my comment to him. I wrote on the bottom of his video. I said, "You do know why communion happens at age 7, right? In the Catholic Church with the tradition of why it happens at 7. If you don't know, I'm about to tell you. I'm trying to expose it. And if you want to be a person who who just is diehard presentism, you know, um, and everything has to be like the way it is now, because that's only what's now is right because it's now, then if that's what you believe and that's why you hate Islam, then you have to hate the Catholic Church. If that's your logic. I'm not saying that telling you what to do, but if that is your logic, by that logic, if you hate a religion because of that, okay, you hate to hate your own religion too. Okay? Because in the Catholic Church, children have communion at age 7 because they call that the age of reason. Okay? Look it up. Ask ChatGPT. We're going to fact check it right now. The age of reason is 7. Okay? In the Catholic Church. Okay? Why they call it the age of reason? Because that's when they said that a child has the mental faculties to know what's right and wrong. Okay? Because a child knows what's right or wrong at that age, at the age of reason, Christianity also had early Christians would oftentimes engage them for marriage at that age because they were old enough. Okay. Now, as far as consummating the marriage, because there's a difference in all cultures about as far as when you can say you're getting married and when you actually have relations. You know what I mean by that. I want to keep it rated G. Okay. Now, relations is once you have puberty. Okay. Now, for the majority of human history, the definition of adult was puberty. Because, and I'm about to blow your mind right now to a lot of people when I tell you that the United States Congress and the United States Supreme Court did not exist back then to tell the people what age was considered to be an adult. Okay? So for the majority of human history, it was for all cultures, Christianity, Islam, it was puberty. Okay. Now, that fact aside, Islam actually has more standards because in Christianity, they adopted, if you know the history of early Christianity, they adopted um, the Roman laws and stuff, which I think the it was either so it's the age of puberty or 12 years old, whichever sooner. So you hit 12 and you don't have any hit puberty, hey, you're 12, right? Because the law says that. The law of that time, the Romans, because the American Supreme Court wasn't there to tell you that it was 18. You weren't an adult till you're 18. Okay. So in Islam, not only do they have the requirement of puberty, but the family has to determine that they are emotionally, psychologically, and physically fit for marriage. Okay. So if you fully understand both those, you know, Christianity doesn't have that requirement, that extra protection. Okay. Because some people develop differently, right? Okay. You can be 12 years old and still be immature emotionally, immature physically. Some people might not even be past puberty yet, right? Okay. But, anyways, let me back up a little. So, my comment was you do know why communion happens at age 7, right? Look up age of reason, in quotes, age of reason, within the Catholic Church, and you will learn the and you will leave the church if you are sincere that marrying and engaging an engagement age is the reason you hate a religion. It's exactly the same for Catholic tradition. Presentism is also something you should probably look up. The Congress and Supreme Court in the United States was not around for most of human history to tell everyone 18 was the age someone was considered an adult. For most of human history, it was puberty. Okay. So let's fact check me there. Okay. Let's ask ChatGPT about the age of reason. Okay. So, like I said, if you're, I mean, like I said, a lot of people just suffer from presentism. They think everything is the way it should be right now, and that's right, and it has been for all of human history. And The reason you think it's 18 is because the government tells you, basically, your current government. Because if you lived in the Roman Empire, I think it was 12. Let's see. ChatGTP. Oh, guess he's gonna respond. I ran out of minutes on the other one, so I can't
One
interrupt him.
confirmed one is from Proverbs in the Bible. It says, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly,
He's
or
still
you
talking about
yourself
the
will
old
be
thing.
just like him."
Yeah.
That's Proverbs chapter 26, verse 4. Another comes from George Bernard Shaw. Never wrestle.
Let's see. We don't need a quote on that. Let's just back up here. Like, what age was considered to be an adult in the uh, early Rome, the Roman Empire?
Good question. In the early Roman Empire, boys were generally considered to reach adulthood around age 14, when they'd go through the toga virilis ceremony, basically putting on the manly toga. That marked their legal and social transition to adulthood. For
Yeah. So,
girls, it was often tied to marriage, which could happen as early as 12, though in
mm,
practice, many married a bit older.
yeah,
That
I'm not.
said, real adult responsibilities like holding public office usually came much later, often in their late 20s or 30s.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
Want me to
touch.
explain more about how that works?
I wish I had the one where I can interrupt it. I just lost minutes. I had the subscription, but I just used them too much, I guess. But anyways, talking about age of 12, if you want to talk about people being uh pedophiles and stuff, the Catholic Church, I believe it's in the Catholic Encyclopedia too. The tradition of the Catholic Church says, and you can look this up, that Mary was probably 12 years old. So, and then since you want to say Jesus was physically somehow like God was the father, like literally, okay, biologically, then God had a child with a 12-year-old girl, had an illegitimate child with a 12-year-old girl. Okay. So the age thing, like they cover that up now too, right? I mean, did you know that? Of course, I grew up. My father was great in history as well too. He had a lot. He was a big history buff. Always talked to me about history. We always saw documentaries together. We also so it's like stuff I grew up. I already know this. You know, Mary's young. People married young were considered adults at young ages. I mean, if you want to talk about people being pedophiles, English classes all across America are a bunch of pedophiles because they keep showing that or making kids read Romeo and Juliet in eighth grade. In most schools, they do that in middle school. Okay, so Romeo and Juliet, they were like 12 or something, right? Like because and then what they say, oh well, because that was a long time ago. People marry young, but a little off topic, I guess. But let's ask him about the age of reason. Okay. Tell me about the age of reason in the Catholic Church, early Catholic Church.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. In the early Catholic Church, they didn't have a formal age of reason like we talk about today. But over time, theologians came to recognize that around age 7, a child is generally able to understand right from wrong. This became known as the age of reason. By the Middle Ages, this idea got tied to sacraments like confession, penance, and the Eucharist, meaning kids around 7 could start receiving communion and going to confession because they were seen as morally responsible. It wasn't about adulthood yet, just the point where a child could personally grasp basic moral and faith ideas. Want me to explain how that developed or how it's practiced today?
How does that relate to a marriage and engagement for marriage? Did you hear me? How does that relate to marriage and age of marriage and engagement?
Good question. So, in the Catholic Church, the age of reason, about 7, is when a child can start making moral decisions. But for marriage, it's a bit different. Canon law historically set minimum ages for marriage For girls 12, for boys 14. That's based more on physical maturity, like puberty, not just the age of reason. The church saw marriage as a contract, so the person needed enough maturity to give valid consent. But that wasn't tied only to moral understanding. It was more about natural capacity.
So why 12 years old? So why 12 years old?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. The reason the church set 12 for girls and 14 for boys goes back to Roman law and ideas of biological maturity. They believed 12 was when girls typically reached puberty and 14 for boys. So they saw that as the natural point when someone could understand and consent to marriage. It wasn't about emotional or full adult maturity like we think today. It was more tied to physical capacity and legal traditions inherited from Roman times. Want me to explain how that changed over time, or why modern canon law raised those ages?
When did the Catholic Church change that age from 12?
Good question. The Catholic Church officially raised the minimum marriage age in 1983 with the new Code of Canon Law. They set it to 16 for boys and 14 for girls. So yeah, it's actually still 14 for girls in canon law today. But most countries have civil laws that set marriage ages higher, and the church follows those civil laws too, requiring couples to meet both sets of rules. If you want, I can explain how that plays out in practice today. Want me to?
All right. So I'm still recording, right? I believe so. Um, yeah, so uh age of reason was 7 because they were old enough to understand. Okay. People did culturally uh engage them for marriage, stuff like that. And then, like I said, their age for marriage was 12 because of Roman law. Huge coincidence that they say Mary was probably 12, right? Because I'm sure if that happened nowadays, they would probably say she was 18. But uh, at the age of reason is 7. People get engaged and they get married 12. I mean, by modern day standards, that's pedophilia to say you can marry a 12-year-old. That anybody could say a 12-year-old is an adult that can be married, right? And that didn't change until what, 1980 something, 83 or 84 or something. Chad GP said it. You can ask him again. Um, some of the other ignorance from this video was let me see. I did comment on another thing he said. Of course, he said, well, only Jesus did miracles, right? And I commented, I'm not picking his side, but he did do miracles too, because it's like Muhammad didn't do miracles. If you actually look into it, that's what I wrote. I said, I'm not picking a side, but he did do miracles too if you actually look into it. One important thing you're missing though, that Jesus is God. That's why he did miracles. Isn't that the usual argument? Which of course I brought that up because I'm sure they're gonna say that. But Elijah, I believe it was Elijah, also raised the dead. Moses did miracles. Like people, of course, when Moses did it, maybe they try to say it was through God or something. But I mean, or God through Moses. But Elijah was like raised dead, just like Jesus. I'm pretty sure it was Elijah. Let me see. Who else rose the dead besides Jesus in the Bible?
Yeah, great question. In the Bible, there are a few others said to have been raised from the dead, but always by God's power, not by themselves like Jesus. For example, in the Old Testament, Elijah raised the widow's son, and Elisha raised the Shunammite woman's son. There's even a wild moment when a dead man touches Elisha's bones and comes back to life. In the New Testament,
So it's always a a twist on things to say like, oh, it wasn't really him, it was through him, you know. Oh, I hope he didn't start talking. Anyways, um, but if miracles qualify you to be God, I mean, there's prophets before Jesus that were doing miracles too, right? But it's always mental gymnastics to explain things like that. I've noticed. But anyways, a lot of people don't know that Muhammad actually did miracles too. So a lot of people are just ignorant and they say well, Muhammad didn't do miracles, so he's not a prophet. Okay, which is funny because in his video, this guy's saying Jesus is a prophet. I mean, is he God or is he a prophet? Right? Like I don't know what branch of Christianity he's come from. I thought he was a Catholic, so I think you think he's God, right? So why you if I mean maybe he's so ignorant he thinks Muhammad thinks he's God or tells people he's God to worship him. Another form of ignorance. There's people out there who actually believe that, but I've actually heard people say Muhammad just wanted to be like Jesus, so he's going around saying to worship him or what? I mean, right? Like he's not trying to be like Jesus if he's saying there's only one God, right? And if you say Jesus says he's God, you know, it just it's not making sense there. Okay, um, but I'm not picking sides, but he did do miracles. If you actually look into it, one important thing you're missing though is that Jesus is God. That's why he did miracles. Isn't that the usual argument occur? Like I said, I've heard a lot of these arguments. Somebody replies, some random person says, "Who did miracles? Jesus or Muhammad? Only Jesus did." This is my reply. I was actually just perturbed. I actually didn't even want to. I actually was just gonna like a lot of people just deserve to be walked away from. Okay, just because how stupid they are. Like I want to laugh. Like I seriously just want to laugh at how stupid a lot of people are. I mean, and they want to be. They want to be. I mean, you could tell them they won't. They'll still find another way to turn things around or something. So I told them, just do yourself a favor and type, did Muhammad do miracles in your favorite AI? If you can't be bothered to do even the most basic research, you can speak to your favorite AI nowadays. I honestly was perturbed and didn't even want to respond, but you should do what I suggest so you can know what kind of people these guys in the video are. Okay. I mean, let's do that. Let's do it together. Did Muhammad do miracles? Did Muhammad do miracles? Come on. Did Muhammad do miracles? I don't know what's going on with him, but I asked him earlier. So let's look at this. I'm sharing the screen. Did Muhammad do miracles? Okay. Interesting on splitting the moon. They say historically, I think there was some kind of, I'm not 100% sure, but I heard that there was some kind of writings from an Indian, um, like an Indian ruler from the time that's like in a museum now where he admits to or seizes. I think they observed this moon being split in India as well and didn't understand until they came in contact with the Muslims, and this Indian ruler actually converts because of that because he had saw that sign and not understood what it was before. Um, there's some more things on that, but you can do your own research. Water flowing from his fingers, multiplication of food, just like Jesus, right? I mean, healing of the sick, um, and of course the night journey. I mean, that could be. Some people can argue if that was a miracle or not. I mean, um, it was a traveled a long distance real quick. Um, it's kind of like some people it didn't make the list in this list, but some people argue that the Quran in itself is a miracle. But I think like five, and maybe if you say the Quran, those are arguably like. But if you obviously heal the sick, multiply food, had water flowing from his fingers, um, see several reports during times of need, water flow from fingers to help companions perform absolute ablution. Okay, let's see, wudu. I think. All right, so I, I'm not saying I'm picking a side. I'm just saying stop looking ignorant. And I mean, people who like have some kind of knowledge, who I guess cultured or have some knowledge of history, like they just find you foolish. Like I don't know, this guy, I thought he was a well respected person until I heard him say things like this. Um, but other people respect him. Obviously, I mean, he just gets a lot of views. I mean, I don't know what to say. But I hope this uh expose some elements that, yeah.